Hey everyone, this is Hari from SyncEasy, and I'm here today trying to show you a demo of a Simpro SharePoint two-way integration and how it can help your project teams get better and more value out of Simpro. Here's what it does and who it's for. What it does is basically extracts all of the data from Simpro attachments, whether it be in jobs, codes, or sites, and extract that out of Simpro and make that available in SharePoint at a chosen location of your choice. So you can basically connect all of your Simpro jobs, all of your Simpro codes, and all of your Simpro sites and all of their attachments from Simpro and make them accessible from within SharePoint. Once the data is in SharePoint, of course, it's available in all of the other Office 365 apps, whether it's Teams, whether it's OneDrive, Windows Explorer. You can access it traditionally from your Windows Explorer File Explorer menu. So that's the power of the integration. Data that's traditionally available only within Simpro attachments is now available in all of these different places. What are the main benefits? The main benefits is basically an automatic download to SharePoint. You can select each SharePoint, a separate folder in SharePoint to each Simpro job or code, or you can simply have it come through automatically. You can share the data that's set up within Simpro to non-Simpro users in your organization. You can obviously search for text inside files and photos, and SharePoint, the search is a lot more comprehensive. It's more easier to access your data. You have full SharePoint collaboration abilities, which means essentially downloading all of the data that's available, being able to edit documents in PowerPoints and Excel files in a collaborative manner, multiple people accessing them together. You can have the same job and code folder structure. So if you have nested folders, if you have folders within folders, and all of that structure is basically the same replicated between Simpro and SharePoint, and we support all of the different file types. Essentially, what it would be is you have this particular structure in Simpro. In Simpro attachments, we would mirror that and replicate that in a folder of your choice. Each job gets its own folder, and you can organize that like that within each particular job. Again, some of the highlights: you can sync to multiple computers once it's in SharePoint. You can have individual folder level sharing permissions given and set up within SharePoint. You can have a lot of metadata and all kinds of additional document parameters that are not possible in Simpro to have that in SharePoint. Simpro is good if you want a basic document attachment ability and basic photo sharing ability. But the moment you want to do large projects, or if you've got hundreds of attachments, then that folder structure and the attachment structure gets a little bit unyieldy, and that's where this integration can help. Again, once the data is in OneDrive and SharePoint, you can do all kinds of things. Like, for example, you can search for barcodes within images. You can search for text that is just on photos. We also extract a copy of the actual Simpro job in text format and save that into SharePoint so that you can search for your attachments by customer name, by site name, by site ID, by email address. So it sort of makes your data more accessible, and you have a complete backup of the data in a different location. That's the main reasons to do this integration. And we'll just go through and show you a quick demo of how it works now. Obviously, it's also available on Macs and all of those other applications where traditionally it's only available from your browser. You can now access the same data from your Windows and Mac computers. I'm going to show you how we can set up the Simpro to SharePoint integration and how it actually works. So here we have the app provisioned. You can see Simpro and SharePoint are currently disconnected. So the first step obviously is to connect Simpro. In this case, we can simply use the standard OAuth. As long as you've got Simpro, as long as you're logged into Simpro in that browser, it would just work, or else you'll need to log into Simpro. So in this case, I'm just going to log into Simpro, and I'm going to use, if you have a multi-company account, you'll have to select a certain company ID to be able to make the integration work. So in this case, I'm just looking at the company ID 16, and I will enter the company ID here. If it's a single company account, then it just basically leave that as 0. So once we hit submit, that then authorizes the integration. Okay, Simpro is connected. Next, we connect SharePoint. Again, the same way, if you are logged into SharePoint, we can just use the same account. Remember that if you are logged in with your account and you authenticate SharePoint, it will use your account. If you want to use a service account, which is a default account, you'll have to log out yourself and then log into a service account. But in this case, I'm just using my current account. Once Simpro and SharePoint are connected, the connect buttons would go away and they're hidden in here. You can see that both are green, they're connected. So we can just close them for the moment. And you can see here that the Simpro account that's connected is this, and the SharePoint username that's connected is this. This is pretty much all we need to do. These settings, they convert the Simpro jobs and codes and sites into text files that make search more accessible, makes Simpro data more accessible in SharePoint. And as far as the configuration is concerned, once you've authenticated the account, you can choose whether you want all of the Simpro data going to a single SharePoint folder, or you want each Simpro job or project to go into individual folders. In this case, just for simplicity's sake, I'll show you the setup with a single SharePoint folder. In this case, I'll select all of my jobs from Simpro going into this particular site and then going into this particular folder. Now this is a live representation of your SharePoint data. In this case, you can see we've got the SharePoint setup connected here, and this is where the data will start going in. You can choose any level of folder that you would like. Our recommendation is don't go too far deep, because in SharePoint you run into a limitation of about 400 characters of file path limit, so you don't want to hit that. So once selected, you've selected the location, just hit save. That then starts bringing all of the jobs over to the location that you've chosen. The same way that we've done the jobs, we can add in a rule and say, hey, bring all of my codes from Simpro into the same site, into this particular location. Select this and hit save, and that saves that location. You can also do the same thing for sites. Now this is, again, all of this is a one-time setup. Once you set this up, you never have to come back and change it again. And all we're doing is selecting the sites, select this location, save. That's all there is to be done. In the next, depending upon the amount of data you have in Simpro, it can take a few hours. We will go back and bring across the last 30 days worth of data from Simpro into SharePoint. If you want to go back and bring last 5 years worth of data, last 10 years worth of data, it's possible. We will have to run a special add-on and a special job for that. But by default, once the integration is connected, it goes and brings across the last 30 days worth of data. You will soon in Simpro, at the moment you are creating jobs, you're adding data to those jobs, you'll start seeing all of those attachments come through in here. Right now, nothing has started, but every job in Simpro will get a folder, and that will come through over here. Let's give it some time. You can see here sync has started. So let's give it some time and we'll come back and continue. Hey everyone, yeah, this is Hari, I'm back, and just wanted to show you how the integration basically brings all the data back in. So we connected the integration a little while ago. As you can see, the sync was still running at 12:10, and I'll just refresh this page. And if we look at this, it's still actually running, which means it's still going through and bringing all the historical data in. But we've got a couple of sample jobs that I can still show you. In addition to this, I actually want to show you another functionality that we have in the portal. This is the file manager, where you have essentially a live view of what's happening in your Simpro jobs in both systems. So if I look at 2035, this is the job where we just added a bunch of attachments. So if I go in and enter 2035 and search, it pulls in the same data in both systems, in Simpro and in SharePoint, and shows you live what exists currently in both systems. So we've got the folder structure that's exactly replicated from Simpro into SharePoint. And within the folders, if you go in, you've got the files that are synced between both locations. Anytime you want to look at that in the actual application, I mean, this is more of a review tool, but if you want to look at the data in reality, you can you can actually go in directly here. So 2035 is the job. If I go into the attachment, here's the pre-construction. We've got 5 attachments. This is pre-construction. We've got 5 attachments. And then on the SharePoint end, exactly the same way, I can click on this link and open the same location in SharePoint, which shows me the folder with all of the folders same as Simpro, and then the folder with all of the case studies and whatever attachments you've got. We can basically sync across any file types. Simpro has a maximum limit of 80 MB for an individual file, but other than that, you can basically upload unlimited attachments on both ends, and the data will continue to sync across. So yeah, this is the Simpro to SharePoint integration. If I go in and add a bunch of data here, so I could go in and, for example, just going to do that now, which is to add just a bunch of documents, invoices in this case. Just add a bunch of these documents onto SharePoint. Similar to if you have PDF drawings or if you have any of that kind of material, you can add that in here, and this will also get replicated in SharePoint from SharePoint to Simpro. I've just added a bunch of additional attachments to Simpro. In this case, in all of these locations, we've just added a bunch of additional attachments to Simpro. And all of those attachments that have been added in Simpro are now basically automatically available in SharePoint. The same way works in both directions. You can actually review these folders in our portal directly without having to go into each system. So you can go in and look at the folder right here, and this shows you the files exist in both systems, and there's a green tick here, which means obviously the data has been synced. You can also go ahead and manually push data if you want. Sometimes if you have the Simpro job open, then Simpro does not allow the API to edit. So it might take a little while from the time you close the job in Simpro to have the data synced, but eventually all of the data from SharePoint will be synced into Simpro and vice versa. And you can see that pretty much in here. There's nothing in this particular folder, but if we go into, let's say, one of the other folders, there's whatever data is, and this can be Excel files, this can be PDFs, images, all of that data from Simpro will be in SharePoint, and any data that you add in SharePoint, let's say for example for this 050 contracts, there's nothing. So if I go into 050 contracts, and if we add let's say a bunch of data from here into 050, we should be able to also see the same data. So I'll just add a couple of data files, let's say a couple of Word documents perhaps, and text documents. So we've added three different types of files into Simpro, into SharePoint, and the same data will now be available in Simpro. This data that we've added in SharePoint directly, this could have also been added in Teams channels, it could have also been added in OneDrive, and it would work exactly the same way. So any data that's added here will be available in the other applications. And we just added the data into the 050 folder here in Simpro, and we added the data into a 050 folder in SharePoint, and I'm just going to review that here. So this is the 050 folder here, and you can see from here that the data is actually available in both places. You've got the green tick in both places. This is not yet refreshed because I haven't refreshed the screen. If I hit refresh here, you will see that the data is actually available in Simpro as well. Not yet. I think I have to cancel and refresh because it's loading a local copy of the job. So let's see if this does it. Yep, that does it. 050, you can see that has 3 attachments now. And these attachments were added in SharePoint originally, and they've come through to Simpro. That's the overview of the integration. It allows data and attachments, unlimited attachments between both systems. We've had customers who have up to 1,000 files for large projects in the system, and they would all sync across in both directions. Hopefully this is useful, and let us know if we can help. Thank you. Bye.